can't I see him?
There you go.
Okay, I was a little. Well, anyway, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. I really appreciate you spending some time with me.
Yeah, no problem.
And as you know, we've had some good discussion. I am recording this, by the way, but we'll kick it off officially and obviously edit it and publish it. But I must say though, I'm impressed with your offering and what you're doing and how you differentiate yourself in the marketplace around high valued, high touch service. But anyway, so we'll kick it off. I'm sure you're ready to go here. So good stuff. So here we go, live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my weekly podcast. And joining me today is Dan Fusco, founder of InnerPC Computer Solutions. And Dan is located in New York City, Midtown Manhattan, but supports his customer base coast to coast. And today we're going to be exploring why so many cyber security strategies fail, not just in theory, but in practice. So Dan's company has been in the front lines of IT and cyber support for over a decade, particularly focused on CPA firms and financial professionals. So today, a few of the topics are going to be around common cybersecurity challenges for CPA firms. You know, key lessons learned by Dan and his company supporting these efforts around CPA firms, and the vision for the future of cybersecurity for CPA firms. So, Dan, welcome, and I'll give you a minute here to give us an introduction and overview of your awesome company.
Well, all right. Thank you very much, Gregory. InnerPC has been around since 2011, and actually, I started it pretty simple. I was actually fixing laptops for people that lived on the west side. I see your map in the background there, and that's where I
Yeah.
started, over there on the west side on 79th Street. And so from there, it just grew to me helping accounting firms and bookkeepers host their data on cloud services. And right now we use Microsoft Azure. And what we primarily do is migrate their data to the Azure stacks into Microsoft. And then we offer support for programs like Lacert, Drake, 1099, CCH, whatever it is. We're very adept at all those programs. And it's just because those are the only programs we work with every day. So we know all the bugs that are happening with that software. And then we try to help people get on with going to work, getting to work with IT, which is never easy.
No, I understand. Now, do you obviously risk and compliance is pretty critical in your space and the verticals you're supporting. Do you have a framework that you recommend, when you come in, typically do they have something in place?
We see lots of different infrastructures. And so when I look at a system, we actually do a cybersecurity assessment, 27-point assessment for any company that comes on our platform, because we need to know where they're at. And so when we find out what they're using for their programs, we break it down to email communication, cybersecurity, like cybersecurity training, and best practices. We also look at their infrastructure and then their technical support. All are very, very important. They're really based off of what cybersecurity insurance companies are asking for, because that's what we're trying to protect against. Is if they do get ransomware or something like that, they're going to get paid out by going through this checklist. So what we typically do is we start with the emails, because that's where a lot of the breaches are going to happen. And then that's a major issue for a lot of companies. The way how they're hosting it, or filtering or not filtering their data. Are they backing up their emails? What kind of cybersecurity training are they getting to realize what is a good email and what is a bad one? Once we hone in on that, then we break the infrastructure down to how is it being hosted on a cloud platform, and do they have all the necessary cybersecurity protections against people getting into the servers and accessing their data. So we really use it as a funnel. We'll start at the top and look at all the data that's coming into their systems, making sure it's clean, their communications are good, and making sure that all the data is secured, backed up, and difficult to get into.
Nice.
Hmm.
So, and then you mentioned security awareness training, and I would, obviously phishing and now smishing is really quite relevant. And again, as the attack surface expands, so what are you, how are your customers? What is their reaction? Any pushback around training? And I see that you do, I think semi-annually, you do a training exercise with your customers.
Yeah, so we do the training is there's a yearly test, no pushback at all. In fact, the way we do it, it's really unobtrusive. There is a half hour test you need to get the certification for the year, but then everything else comes out on a weekly basis, and sometimes we send out for a video, 2 minute video that they watch, then answer a little quiz to make sure they got all the points on it. Other times we send fake emails to their inbox and see if they click on it. And then if they do, then we just send them a little reason as to why it was bad. So that's just gentle reminders, particularly in the accounting world. There's all sorts of weird emails that start happening, like in January, where you're going to get emails from people saying, hey, we want you to do our taxes. In fact, hey, here's all our PDFs. Just download them right now and you can get to work. And that's always a little bit weird. So you do get a feel for how these videos or how the emails are bad and malicious. But with AI, it's getting a little bit more tricky.
Yeah, AI, yeah, absolutely. And so when somebody fails, I mean, or do you recommend or have content and training for them so they can pass that test a second time?
Yeah,
The
usually
fish.
it's a review of the video. They'll know where they had an issue in the exam.
Okay.
But the weekly emails that we send out to tests are gentle. Hey, you want to look out for this. Don't click on this link because of this. Or it might be look at the URL that the email is coming from. Does it seem legitimate? And there's some really tricky things that they're able to do. For instance, if you have Intuit, they could have a link saying support.intuit.com, which is not a real link for Intuit. So they throw these interesting little URLs in there, which make it easy for somebody to just click on the link and assume trust with those people. There's also other sorts of very vicious ways of, not necessarily with their servers and the emails, but also phone calls. Really tricky. I had a client who just had a bad day, got a call from Chase, and they were doing a cybersecurity check protocol, and they read them a 4-digit number that they need to read back. That number actually let that bad actor into the banking account. So, and hundreds of thousands of dollars later, it was a problem. So it's not just emails, it's also social issues as well. Social hacking really is a definition. And that's actually very, very difficult to come, to realize what's happening.
Yeah, I agree. I think the bad guys have gotten very clever, and I actually almost fell for one, a toll. So I'm sure you've seen them, right? That was these toll notifications or
Yeah.
emails you get, and you were you didn't pay a toll in the Massachusetts Turnpike, and go to this site and pay or your license will be suspended. It's pretty clever. It's
Yeah, it's
pretty.
very clever, and the toll number is like you owe $5.96, so it's just like the right number. You think, oh, that's probably true.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so all that stuff is really hard, and that's why you have to have an email filter and filter it out. At least get the bad emails in one area where you know they're bad, and try
Yeah.
to make your inbox clean. That's the other thing is a lot of this garbage that you get every day really makes your inbox look unpleasant. So it's hard to understand like what's even coming in. So we try to make sure that that whole flow of emails is looking good on Outlook.
So, so clearly tax season, right, and CPAs, and April 14th. I mean, does that how does that impact how you support your customers? So I guess what I'm trying to say is, is it's a high alert season, phishing emails and things like this we're talking about. Is there adjustments to the controls, or do you do some type of, or you're monitoring the controls for their cyber infrastructure nonstop, or 24/7, or?
Yeah, we actually have a program that's installed on the servers, and it's very powerful. What it will do is it recognizes when certain software is installed by accident on the server or intentionally, but is by bad actors. And so what that software does, it will actually detect that bad instance. And it's a little obtrusive, but it shuts the entire server down. And so nothing, if it's not on, it's not going to get infected. And then what happens is they're able to access that computer, this particular software, while it's offline. And then next time it boots up, it automatically gets rid of the bad software. And then we have remediation. You have to have an event management tool on there, so that way if there was a breach, then you have it documented. So it's a very powerful antivirus program. And it's really difficult because they're always changing the way how these programs are getting into the servers. So it's really hard to keep up on that. So yeah, we lock it down there. We have a system where you log into your desktop and you get a notification on your phone, which is great. So even if somebody does get your password, they're going to need your cell phone to get in. So we just try to stack it up with a number of layers to make it more and more difficult to get into the systems. Ultimately, you know, they're going to get in if they really, really want, but what you can do is just make it exceptionally difficult. You could have a disgruntled employee that could do something. So you have to make sure that, you have data loss protection in place at some point. So it's pretty intricate. It's very difficult to stay on top of. But if we have a good template that we can work off of, then that really mitigates any issues that you want to have. When a lot of people say, speaking of April 14th, like one of the worst stories I have is we put a server in for someone in January, and it was a little regular server that you use in your office. I really didn't want to install it, but I need the server in my office. I said, okay, we really don't want to do that. We prefer if you go on the cloud structure because it's much safer and you can access from anywhere and blah, blah, blah. All the good things about cloud hosting and the security. And so he's, oh, I really want the server. I'm used to having the server in the closet. And so we put the server in the closet, and I said, look, when you do this, you need to maintain it, which is to say you need to be monitoring it, you need to put patches on, and you need to back up your data every night, and, a whole list of things that you need to do in order to make sure that server is secure. And he goes, Dan, no problem. I got this. I have, and I'm like, okay, so how are you backing up your hard drive? He's like, I got a great process. I'm like, what's your great process? And he said, well, you see this little thumb drive here? And he held up a thumb drive. And I'm like, yeah, I see the thumb drive. He's like, I back up all my data on this thumb drive and then I lock it in my trunk so it's co-location backup. I'm like, okay, that's all right, and that's what he promised he would do. Okay. And I said, look, if you feel safe with it, obviously I can't make you do something that you don't want to do, but you're going to be managing the server. You're responsible for it. That's your data. You do what you want. So, we didn't do any of the patching. We didn't do anything that we would normally do if he didn't ask us to. And guess what?
What?
April 8th. We get the call, and he's like, Dan, you're not going to believe this, but I can't get into, I think it was CCH tax. And what happened was somehow he downloaded a bad email. It really starts with the emails, and they put a ransomware on there that was set to go off at a certain time during the tax season. and it was at 4 in the morning on April 8th. I think that was the date. And so he came in to work that morning and nothing would open up CCH. And what it did is it took all the extensions. So we have like .docx is our Word document. It would take all those extensions and it would change them to .gamma. That's the ransomware encryption extension. So basically, you don't associate the file with any sort of program, right? Because .gamma is not docx or whatever CCH Access was using. So basically, when you clicked on it, then this nasty little message came up saying, sorry, we have all your data and your data is encrypted. You need to pay, I think his fee was $8,000, something like that, to get the decryption code. Or he's done, like not doing taxes. And so we worked with him. We actually did get it unencrypted, not by paying them. You know, you got your deadline on April 15th, and I'm like, you're down. I'm going to be up for 24 hours a day for the next 5 days getting this up and running. So it was incredibly expensive, even though it was a three-person shop, you know? And so we ended up decrypting the data. I built the server for him in like 2 days on Azure, put everything up there. He's been using it ever since, 7 years later, you know. But it just goes to show they will hit you at the worst time because they
Yeah.
want you to experience the most pain, so you're going to pay the most amount of money. And that's really the story behind it. So, and I said, like, what happened to your backup? Right? And he's like, Dan, I just forgot. After about a week, I stopped doing it because it was too much work. And when the insurance company came in to give him a payout for the ransomware, he said, nope. The insurance company is like, let's take a look at your logs for the server. No updates were being done to the server. And so they're like, well, you weren't doing the updates to the server security patches. We're not going to pay out the ransomware fee, the payout for the cybersecurity insurance. Of course, they don't want to pay a dime if they have to. So they're going to look for the smallest little thing that they can possibly find in order to not pay you out. And
I,
that's why we have that 27 security question thing to go through and say, hey, look, cross all these T's, dot all these I's, and make sure that you're running a very, very secure platform.
and it's always a great story and lots of lessons to be learned there. But as soon as you relax your requirements, that's when you get hit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
And the point that I'd like to make is it's really the simple things that make you secure. So the training, tabletop exercises,
mm-hmm.
and so eventually, I mean, so you're going to get hacked, right?
Yeah,
And eventually, it's going to happen. And
absolutely.
you have to have the playbooks, but you have to have the processes and procedures to recover,
Yeah.
or they got your money.
They
And to be
got,
quite frank, I'm a little surprised it was only $8,000 in ransomware. I can't. That's
well,
all.
that's when that was 7 years ago. So what
That's seven.
happened, and it was a three-person shop, so they didn't have a lot of data. They are smart enough to realize what smaller shops are able to pay. But if you remember, like the Colonial Pipeline 3 years ago, uh, don't quote me on this, but I think the way they got into that, and by the way, that shut down the entire East Coast, with oil. I don't know if you remember that hit about 3 years ago. The reason why that happened, they had a server in a closet that was running Windows XP. I mean, that's a how many millions dollar company is that? And it's still running XP. I don't know if that's the way the bad actors got in, but all infrastructures, if it's not well maintained, will have a way of getting in.
Yeah. I mean, shadow IT is, that expression, right? But I mean, that's certainly a significant threat, right?
Yeah.
Some people doing things off, like the story I had with people doing things offline or trying to do it themselves.
Yeah.
And
It's crazy.
it's pretty complex stuff.
And we see, we do a lot of consultations and we do that cybersecurity score, and many, many companies are scoring well below 50% on that assessment. That is not uncommon.
But don't they need that assessment for their insurance policies, their cyber insurance policy?
Yeah, they need it. Well, so that's another area that there's They need it for two reasons. One, for most cybersecurity insurance companies that are asking for it, they're going to be legitimate and they'll pay things out. If they're not asking for these questionnaires or any of that, I would definitely look at the policy to see if it's legitimate and if it's actually going to cover ransomware.
Right.
They put a
Well,
lot,
also,
yeah,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. Well, they
No,
put a lot in the small print,
yeah,
and
of course. They don't want to pay. We
they don't
know
want to
that.
pay. And there's also this thing called the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, and they came out with the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act in 2023, which is really mandating that every financial firm, which are CPAs because they have social security numbers, if you're doing anything with personal PII, personal data, then you are a financial institution. That goes all the way to, believe it or not, car dealerships because they have financial information. So all of them, per the FTC, needs to get a yearly cybersecurity assessment with pen testing on their systems. And then every 6 months, they need a vulnerability scan. And the reason why you do that, it's a good reason, because you want to make sure that you're protecting your client's data. Which honestly, I'd be scared to death if I weren't doing that. Because even if you have one client, that client could be worth, a lot of money. Um, so it doesn't
Yeah.
really matter if the size of the CPA firm or whatever.
No, I agree. And, well, the big ones, I mean, they have the resources, but even at big financial firms, I'm talking to CISOs or managing directors. 99% of the alerts that come in, I could have a junior person or a lay person take care of. It's those two or three a year that scare me.
But yeah, yep, it's a
And
small
then
number, and yeah,
yeah. And essentially, what the feeling was, which was kind of cool, they learn this, right? It's, what, if any of these bad actors or nation states focus on us, we're done. We got
yep.
no chance. No chance.
Yeah, when I was initially doing my cybersecurity seminar, which I created just around COVID because everybody was wondering how you work from home, I did a lot of research on ransomware. And you're going to think it's like this little guy in some garage, somewhere in the middle of Ukraine doing this stuff. That's what we think.
Yeah,
We are so wrong.
we're so wrong.
There are sophisticated companies out there that have big business buildings that are completely filled with technicians. They have a human resources department, they have their IT department, they have the help desk line in case you get the ransomware. They're going to need somebody to answer the phone and say, this is where you pay the ransom. They have a development team for the ransomware. They have vacations, company-wide vacations. I mean, these are not legitimate companies, but they're really well-built companies. It's not one or
Big
two
business.
people. Huge
Big business.
business. It's a big business, and they're putting money into it. So it was shocking to see this one layout with all this, the CEO's office, the IT department's office, everything on this floor plan. And I was amazed by that. And then we were going in and seeing on the dark web, the black market for cybersecurity. I mean, you can get any of this equipment, to have fake ATM machines online. I think you can buy one for $1,500, so all of this is available to everybody. So it's not hard to do that if you want and just increase the number of bad actors that are out there.
So no, I mean, it's a little scary, right? And obviously, our world is, with all the physical wars, and now this is pretty challenging stuff. So let me ask you though, where do you think the future lies for cybersecurity? I mean, it's not, cyber threats aren't going away.
I think
So
they're increasing.
yeah, of course.
I really do because now you have AI and I am seeing it in real time. In fact, my next meeting is with a potential company that's doing AI for CPAs. And, it's like the Wild West out there right now. It really is. There are so many companies. It's not that hard to create an app. You can go on Fiverr and you can hire some really smart people to create an app for you in a week. And the thing is, they're going to promise to do all your taxes for you and all this stuff, and have the virtual assistant like make the phone calls and things like that. None of it's compliant. There are zero regulations for artificial intelligence running these businesses. We don't know where their data is being stored. We don't know what they're doing with the data. And so I'm super cautious on all that. Not only that, but there's a whole workflow that people are used to with these older legacy programs. It's very, very difficult to upgrade. And, CCH, Tax, UltraTax, all these companies, they're not going to relinquish the millions of users that are using their software too easily, you know? So, I think people should really be aware of what's going on with AI and the cybersecurity. I think there's going to be a lot of issues in the next couple of years with just new companies promising the world and not really being able to deliver on any of it, and potentially just taking all your data and making it difficult for people to work.
So does the talent shortage, right? The skills gap, talent shortage, does that impact how CPA firms or just small, medium sized companies, small enterprises, but is that impacting how they're making decisions?
That's a wonderful point, because there is a lack of talent in the United States. And what I'm seeing a trend is there are companies out there who are hiring from South America, they're hiring from Philippines, they're hiring from India, and there are some very, very smart people in these countries that will do amazing accounting. So what we're doing on that case is we're encouraging it, because the labor is less expensive and you're getting right now very talented people. And so if they're a good company, they'll have their own cybersecurity stack that they have with those individuals. But also the platform that we build out with Microsoft is locked down. So you can be working from South America, but you'll have to log into this secure server. So it's a very good way to scale your business when you have the proper IT department infrastructure set up.
Then clearly there's fraud verification, right? People fraud. So you need to verify, somebody's identity and are
Right.
they who you say they are?
Yeah, as far as outsourcing or
Or, just employees or,
yeah.
workers.
Yep.
I mean, I guess, uh, we're exploring international or offshore, certainly could be employees like accountants, but it also, cyber security personnel or
Right. Yeah.
teams or
And even us, we're a managed service provider. Ultimately, you want to know who you're working with for your IT company. And there, at the bottom of the day, at the end of the day, there is a factor of trust that you have to have with your clients and, with an IT department. And so that's very tricky to establish. And I think that's a huge area of concern. You do want to vet whoever you're working with out completely. And if they give you any red flags like, oh, that doesn't really matter, no, you really don't need to be secure in that compartment, or no, we already do that, and then you ask them how and they don't know how at all, then you gotta hear these little red flags and just do your job vetting anybody that touches your data out completely. And don't take their word for it. There's some amazing salespeople out there, and I love sales. And so don't get me wrong, but if when you're not selling something that's good for somebody, then that's not great. And you just want to be super careful these days, I think. You can get a third party, get somebody else to look at whoever you're looking at for outsourcing, for IT stack, for MSP. Have your trusted advisor, your office manager on those meetings. The way we do it is we say, okay, here's our first 15-minute meeting that we have with our clients, potential clients, and that is to see if we actually get along. If we're friends, and because you really want to make sure that who you're working with you like, and that includes us. And also, my team gets beaten up sometimes by some really tough, people that we have as clients, and I want to mitigate that. So we use a 15-minute meeting just to say hello. It's like a first date sort of thing. Then we have another meeting where we do their assessment, where we don't touch their computers. Then we have a third meeting where we bring our information, what we found based off the second meeting, and we say, here's where you are at, and here's how you fix it. And by the way, during this whole process, bring your office manager, bring your wife, bring whoever you want to all these meetings. We want to be as transparent as possible. And if you get any issues with having that done, as a person who's looking at employees or IT stacks or whatever, then that's a red flag, and you want to look for all the red flags that you can with
No,
anybody
I
that you're working with.
no, that's great and great insight. Well, I mean, so I appreciate all of what we spoke about, and I really think that there is something about loyalty and relationships, and when I look at your company, you're doing IT, you're doing cyber, you're very hands-on concierge type of service. Your commitment to the an SLA of a few minutes, right? And all these wonderful things. Now, and I guess what I'd like to, I mean, it makes it a very compelling story. So how do your customers find you?
Well, usually they see me talking on cybersecurity or artificial intelligence at a conference. So we have a very big footprint nationwide. I'm part of a lot of associations, AFWA, NCCPAP. I'm going to RMAC in Denver in September. So I do meet people in person a lot. And I find that those are the best ways for me to actually find out who people are, what they need, and then they get to know me very well. So I go, really all over the country from like May 1st to December. In fact, we host CPA Summit in December, which is really great. And that is a conference where we invite not just CPAs, even though it's called CPA Summit, we invite all accounting financial people to come to this event. It's right near us, Gregory. It's right near LaGuardia at the World Trade Fair, the World Fair Marina. And so we have a full day of speakers lined up. We have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then I hope to have a band at night so we can all have fun together. It's right on December 5th. So I do a lot of in-person events. And so that happens. Word of mouth is huge. So we get a lot of referrals. And so people call our phone number or they email us or they email Dan at InnerPC.com and they say, hey, I heard about this. And, that's how people kind of find out about us.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, it sounds
And
like you're
it's fun. I mean, like I'm going to 12 conferences this year, which is a lot. Because if you put those all into like May, June, July, and then September and October, November, that's three a month. And so what we're doing is we're going to do 25 of those next year. So we're going to be every month, we're going to be going to 5 or 6 different conferences and helping people.
do you have a table and a few people come with you, or are you but also speaking? You have a speaking engagement.
Yeah, so this year I go to pretty much all of them. Next year I will only go to the ones where I'm speaking. Then I'll have another team that's just going to have a table there. But we go to the IRS Tax Forum. There's 4 of those events. There's one in Baltimore in September that we'll be going to. So we just are really hitting the scene that way. And there's a lot of need. I thought maybe everybody has their IT stuff figured out, but they don't.
No, no,
I
no,
thought
they
that, hey,
don't.
maybe, at this point you would think, but there's a lot of people who come up and they fill out a little survey to win a computer or whatever at my table, and I read the questions. And have you been hit by ransomware in the last year? Yes. Has your server gone down in the last year? Yes. How much downtime do you experience? Days, which is just shocking to me. And it's not everybody, but I would say a good 20% of the people that come to our table are having problems.
Yeah, I mean, wow, that's really incredible.
Yeah.
Well, great stuff. Great conversation, Dan. I really appreciate the time you spent with us today, and certainly addressing some really fabulous topics, very robust topics. And it was great to hear about your firm and the unique differentiators that separates you from, you know, the others that are out there.
Yeah.
So I know it's a crowded space, and it's built on loyalty and trust. And so I wish you the best.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. It's fun being on your show.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye bye.
absolutely. Bye bye.